What's up, Summoners? King Blair here. Today, for Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to be looking at the top 5 heroes that went from hero to zero. Now, these are heroes that at one point in the game, or for a very long time, were actually very, very strong heroes, but now they are no longer as strong as they were before, and if anything, are not even really seeing any play in any meta or any PvP. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and Discord server, link down in the description. But without further ado, let's get right into it. If you agree with it, or if you think I missed one, let me know down in the comments which one you think I missed and deserve to be on this list. But with that, let's just jump right in, right? So again, in Epic 7, there has been a pretty good amount of power creep. A lot of heroes do see faces, they see metas, they sometimes come in, pop out, in and out of different metas, according to the hero releases and the buffs that they are done. But there are some heroes that really fell from a very high point from where they were released. So for the honorable mentions, we're gonna go way back, way to the olden days, so you kind of get an idea of the heroes that I'm talking about. But first is Haste and Cess. Both these heroes actually used to be monsters when the game first came out. Haste being one of the best boss takers in the game because of how strong his debuffs were and how good his damage was single target. He was a unit that everyone wanted to get when they re-rolled and hope they get lucky because he wasn't on the selective summon, right? So he was a hero that everyone wanted, but he wasn't on the selective summon, so it was kind of like you have to get lucky to get him. I didn't get Haste. I was really sad. I thought he looked really cool, and I was really sad over time as he is in his current state where he's not really doing a lot, right? It's an honorable mention again because it happened so long ago and it wasn't for the longest period of time. On the other hand, we have Cess, who was the best farmer, one of the best arena units, one of the best DPS units for like the first 4, 5, 6 months of the game. Insane single target damage, but now he is like, where does he even see play? He doesn't even see any play in PvE or really any PvP, right? Unless you're trying to have fun with him. So definitely a very, very long fall. Now, to get even closer to the top 5 that we're going to be seeing at the honorable mention, the last one I'll talk about is someone like Faithless Litica, because she's one of the ones that almost made this list going from 0 to hero. The only reason that she didn't go from hero to 0, I said it backwards, is because she actually still sees a little bit of play. Some people still like her. I just pulled her. I'm probably going to try to use her because she's definitely seeing a small resurgence. And again, as I mentioned, some of these heroes don't necessarily need buffs. Sometimes it's just not the right meta for them. Although Faithless Litica is almost at the point where she could use a buff. So the big thing with Faithless Litica, why is she not seeing play, right? Her kit is actually really strong. There's one reason, and the big reason is going to be her base speed. It is abysmal in today's day and age. Back in the day, believe it or not, a unit with a base speed of 114, 115 was considered to be on the faster side, with AC just being a monster. Think about this. Bazaar was 109, and he was a really good engager. Oxlots, it's like 112, and he's one of the best engagers for the longest time, right? Flan was 115. All these heroes were around that 114, 115 range, and Faithless Litica was one of the faster setup units in the game, right? Of course, there was still Judith, and there was still speed contestants that were faster, but it wasn't like it is now with Peyra and with Ran that just really speed power crap, and we also got a lot more answers to actually deal with her. That she didn't see as much play, and she's not really seeing that much play at all anymore. She used to have a skin, believe it or not, she was an RTA season skin, and she very much deserved it because this hero made Cleave into a monstrosity that it was back in the day. The ability to do this as 2 without triggering counterattacks, and then to set up the skill nullifier and reset a unit. Very, very scary, still really good. It's just kind of hard for her to take turn 1, which is huge in today's day and age where literally every unit in the game has like 112, 114 speed or something faster, right? But now, with that out of the way, so you have an idea with the honorable mentions, let's actually get to the top 5. And at number 5, we have none other than General Purge. Now, before you mention, can't you still use him as a Wyvern frontline unit? Yes. You can actually still use him as a Wyvern frontline unit because he does CR push by 15%. If you give him the EEs like 16, 18%, which is really nice, right? You're actually able to get some pretty good CR push, but he is light, which means that the Wyvern does get to move up when he does hit him. And General Purge is taking quite a lot of damage from the Wyvern, making it harder for some players to actually build him right and get the damage necessary to actually kill the Wyvern in time. And he just literally got power creeped recently by a 2-star movie, makes your Wyvern team essentially have General Purge. Why? This has 2, if you have all water allies, it's not the full 17%, but it's a 30% CR push, but you can pick any frontline unit. So now your Angelica essentially functions as a General Purge. He also is an incredibly good Wyvern unit because he's able to set up that decreased attack. And he just has a lot of debuffs on the S1, letting you be able to clear Wyvern 13 easier, and has decreased defense, and can do pretty good damage, right? Because he is a thief, right? So he just makes Wyvern so much easier that in Wyvern, G-Perk is not seeing that much play. And then in PvP, you may be wondering, why is G-Perk not seeing that much play anymore? What happened? Right? Well, the meta just got a lot faster for him. It got a little bit too fast for old man G-Perk, right? With things like Fairytale Tenebria, with Hua now, with Pera being able to give attack buff, apply that restrict, apply that unable to be buffed. It's a lot for him to deal with, and even things like Ran, Cleave adjustable to a point where he is no longer this menace attack buffer that everyone wants on their team. Can he still be used? Absolutely, even though he's pretty much not really seeing almost any play. Some people occasionally do pull out their G-Perks when they feel like they have the right setup to counter very specific cleaves, or if they don't have the other answers to certain cleaves, he still can be a good option. But just definitely compared to what he was before, where he was the first pick unit, he was at the same spot that things like Sea Lilies are now, right? He was in the forefront taking that first turn, right? But now it's like, G-Perk, he's there. But that's going to bring us to the number 4, and we have none other than Kron. Kron, I feel I'm obliged to put on this list. We did this top 5 actually a while back, and this list has grown a lot more. So you can definitely check it out. I think I usually don't delete another video, so you can check out how it was about like 8 months ago, right? And I think it's one of the most watched videos. But as far as Kron goes, it's just, I do not see this unit ever coming back unless they gave him the most insane buff on this planet, right? Because he has fallen so far from being this menace, anti-cleave, DPS that can go counter set or speed set to just kind of being there because everything in their grandmas has a strip, right? People say, oh, he can be good in the situation. I saw this legend guy that's number 100. Right, yes, he has insane gear on his Kron, probably triple SS, and he does make him work, right? Can you still make him work? Absolutely, but you need some insane gear and you need the stars to literally align for you, right? Because you have to make sure the opponent has no strips, no tanky units, and not a bunch of water because they just changed RTA to also have water. And almost everything in the game has some form of strip now. Almost everything in the game has some form of unbuffable, some form of control. It's pretty hard for him to actually do everything. Everything has like innate proof of valor or like Hua. You can't kill a Hua, so he's kind of like sitting there. So it's very hard for him in the PvP scene. And it's very sad to see him fall so low to where he is now. Is he still seeing play? Yes, occasionally. Can you use him in PvE? I occasionally do take him out for Earth Expedition, but there's just so many better options that it almost doesn't justify the investment into Kron right now. It's just a unit that I think looks so cool. One of my favorite units in the game. The reason this YouTube channel even exists, and he's just in a terrible spot. Smoggy, I don't know what you could do besides giving like insane buffs, but that's not always good because that just leads to more power creep, right? So we can't ask for insane buffs because then we're just getting more power creep and someone else's unit that they love is going to go out of the meta. So again, it kind of sucks for Kron. I don't know how you could fix him without breaking him because it's just everything has a strip, right? It's just a nature of the way that the game developed. But that is going to take us to the number 3 with none other than Tempest Surin. I never thought I would include this unit in a list of heroes that went from hero to zero. So why is this hero on this list? What happened to Surin? How good was she before? This unit was extremely toxic. A lot of people used to call her a little cockroach. The combo with Fallen Cecilia was just ridiculously hard to deal with. She was in every single arena defense. Amazing unit in RTA, insane unit in Guild Wars. Almost every single Guild Wars defense used to have her. The old FCC, Landy, Surin, it just worked, right? That defense just worked. People just lost to it. And this unit was very, 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 very hard to deal with. But now, she feels kind of weak, right? Her damage is not quite there. Her debuffs, other heroes do way more. There are way more ways to actually deal with her passive because we have things like Hua. We have a lot of really strong counterattack units like Rem, Violet, some even like Belian, right? Like all these AoE counterattacking heroes. She still has her old counters. So it ends up being the scenario where she doesn't really beat that many units. And even things like a Ravi that she used to be, because a Ravi actually applies injury, there are certain scenarios where you actually are slowly decreasing that health. And and she won't proc the passive to go into stealth, right? It's kind of a weird interaction when that does happen, when there's like an Aureus, but it's a really weird matchup now, right? So she's in a really weird spot, but the biggest thing is all the counter options and the things like Hua, the things like Rimuru that just look at her and laugh, right? They're just like, who cares about your passive, right? Even think of someone like Celine, like the light 5-star thief. She's even seeing problems because there's so many answers to her in the meta right now, right? So she's definitely Tempest Soaring, could use an EE to help her with her stats because she is a 4-star. So if she had more damage, there'll be more reasons for you to bring her, but there's still just so much stray damage in the game. I do think that an EE might actually put her back on the map as a form of anti-cleave. Why do I say that? Because she does have that innate 30% cut, right? If you give her like either a speed EE or a crit EE, where you can make those stats and building her much easier, you'd be able to either get more damage or more speed if you were trying to go for some form of anti-cleave option with your Tempest Sorin, and it would just give more players more options. So I would like to see that, but again, really, really weird to see this hero go from being like this monster of a unit to literally seeing no play right now, which is why she's on this list. But now that brings us to the number 2, and we have none other than Elencia, because this unit really went from being arguably one of the best units in the game, one of the best bruisers, the golden standard for what a bruiser should be, to the golden standard of what a bruiser should not be, right? It is really sad to see Elencia fall so much, although she's seeing a very small resurgence in inheritance, because I actually used my Elencia in inheritance, and it was pretty fun, right? She was kind of slapping those bosses in inheritance. But what happened to Elencia? How was she before? Well, before, she was a monster. When RTA first came out, RTA Season 1, Season 2, even up to Season 3, she was one of the best bruisers because of her ability to deal with buffs, being able to dispel and give increased defense, being bulky, hard to take down, doing a lot of work, doing a lot of damage, right? This was at a time where Epic 7 was very different, right? We talk about all these strips that are in the game with Lion, AOL, Peyra, Buff Cerise, right? Like there's all these different ways to strip, and that's not even all of them, right? Ram S2. There's literally strips everywhere in the game, but back in the day, they were a lot rarer, and the game was much, much slower, right? Games lasted up to Frenzy 5 normally. In Arena, people were playing like with very bulky units. Same with Guild Wars, right? Things weren't as fast as they are now. And Elencia really shined in those situations because not only would she set up for your team, but she'd take away the setup of your opponent, and she would punish the opponent with some very hard-hitting S1s into S2s. But now, even with the added E that's helping her stat line, helping her make it easier to build, she just doesn't bring enough to the table for a bruiser, right? Because when I think of bruiser now, I think of a Ravi, I think of Hua, I think of Rimuru, I think of these units that are just insanely hard to take down, insanely tanky, can one-shot a unit, has CR pushing, have extra things that they're bringing to the table and are more threatening on the board and don't require your opponent to be hitting you for you to be able to make use of them, like Elencia does for her S2, right? So it's a unit that fell very, very hard from where she was to being a nobody right now. It's like, who even knows Elencia? And she used to be the unit that a lot of people used to really, really want because her design's always been really cool. So it's really sad to see Elencia drop that far off from being the super strong unit to what she is now. But again, here we are, and that's why she's on this list. But now, at the number 1, we have none other than Dark Corvus. I cannot believe this unit is going on here. And the biggest reason why is because for the longest time, we thought that this guy was like the god of Guild Wars, right? He was like the unit where if you had Dark Corvus, you had the freest Guild Wars in your life. You could slap him on and just win Guild Wars offenses, right? That used to be true, right? So for the longest time, people were like, well, not all MLs and not all heroes need to be good at all content, but if they can be really good at one content. And Dark Corvus was a good example of that. He was a monster at Guild Wars, could do our arena, and then wasn't really good anywhere else, right? That was kind of his thing, right? That's what Dark Corvus was all about. But now, he still sees some playing, but it's so hard to justify using him when there are so many other just better options, and the meta has just gotten incredibly fast. Now, imagine bringing this into a C. Lilius. It's going to be pretty hard for him to live some C. Lilius' strikes. Not only does he have to resist a pretty high effectiveness unit, but he also has to deal with the fact that she's dual attacking with extremely high DPS units. You have to deal with units like Hua that can just, one-shot him, right? Units like Rimuru that can pretty much just one-shot him, right? So there's all these heroes that are just doing more damage, doing more. It's way too fast for him in Guild Wars, and there are just better options. He has to wait several turns for him to reach this S3. Hua can just use the S3 at the start of the fight. And they do exactly the same amount of damage. And you need to use your Soul Burn. But Hua can do the exact same thing with less setup and even has higher damage potential, and it's going to be slightly bulkier because you recycle your barrier. So it's just really hard to justify Old Man Dark Corvus, right? He just feels outdated. If you look at his kit, S1, Provoke, that's it. S2, you get stacks on your S3. S3, defense penetration based on your health, that does around 20 to 24k damage. Hua does about the same amount of damage and more. Turn 1. Right? So it's tough seeing Old Man Dark Corvus be in the situation that he is right now, but that is just the name of the game. But that is going to be all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments which you agree or disagree with. And stick around for next week for the next top 5, which is going to be what units are benefiting the most from the new RTA change. Because believe it or not, there are going to be pretty crazy RTA changes coming your way this next season. And there are a lot of heroes that are going to be benefiting. So we'll talk about those next week. But that is all I got for you guys today. And I will see you next time. Peace.